As we've been progressing through Lent, and now we find ourselves on the precipice of Holy Week, I was looking at and reflecting on the gospel. It's the Passion narrative. We hear it every year for Palm Sunday. We also hear it every year at Good Friday celebration. Um, the thing about the Passion that always strikes me is that there's a participation element to it, right? That as we're proclaiming it, as we're reading it, I actually probably read the least of us out of the three of us reading up here, and probably the congregation said as much as I said. It's interesting because during the course of it, um, it as we're just proclaiming it tonight, we all have our part to play. It made me think about so there's been a few different times, but between high school youth group and then when I was in college, we would do passion plays and living with across stuff and those kind of things. When I was my 2 years at LSU, we would do a passion play for family, friends, student body, whatever, kind of leading to the end of Lent. And both times we did it, I got enlisted into the Roman army as a guard. I guess it's because I'm big and scary, and because I'm one of the few people that could handle a person being on a cross and picking them up. But as we were doing it, I remember there was this one time. My buddy Trey was was Jesus for the thing, and what we did, instead of carrying a big cross, we would put, it was a 4x4 piece of wood, so about like this in diameter, and or the cross section, and it was about 4 or 5 feet long. So this thing probably weighed about 70 pounds, somewhere in that range. So we would put it on his back, and that's what he was carrying and kind of stumbling through the aisles of the church. And when he would fall, he would drop it, and when he would drop it, I mean, this thing was big, it was loud, it would bounce. Like when it hit the ground, it echoed. I remember we had practiced it so many times that we knew exactly where he was going to drop it. We knew exactly what was going to happen. Well, the first night we did this performance, it's me and a buddy and then two other guys that, like, we're the guards, and we're kind of clearing the way. And as we're kind of going through, it was dark, and this is the first time we did it with no lights on. And for some reason, somebody was not where they were supposed to be. So when Trey went to drop the thing, he dropped it, and it landed on his big toe. And yeah, like I remember, he drops it, we all see it, and his eyes got about the size of like softballs. And he was like, yeah, like, and he's trying to not, like, he's trying to stay in the thing, and he's doing the thing. So he starts walking, and we start seeing blood on the ground, like the whole thing. He got to the front, we put him up. He's up, he's Jesus up in the sanctuary. He's like on the cross, and he's doing this thing. A friend of ours was sitting in the front, and she leans over and she says, they made the makeup look so realistic. Look, blood's even dripping from his foot. They had no idea he lost his big toenail. Anyway, it was really gross, and it was fun. Anyway, so but as I was looking at, like, when that was going on, there was a couple of scenes though that I remember when we were doing this play, that as a guard, like trying to enter into that kind of enter into that story in that place. It was interesting because I remember, like, watching The Passion, Mel Gibson's Passion, right? I remember watching that movie and just seeing the guards and how ruthless they were, and seeing how, especially something like the scourging of the pillar, just like you're sitting there and your heart is breaking every time you hear another swing or another hit, and it's just a gruesome kind of moment, and you can almost feel it whenever it happens. Being in that role in the play, we did a scourging at the pillar scene, and Christ the King at LSU, they have these massive concrete pillars that kind of hold the church up, and we tied him up, and we had a bullwhip, and what we were doing is when we would swing it, we would pop the pillar and not hit him. So we would swing, and it would make a loud crack, and it would echo throughout the church. And I mean, I remember getting into it and, like, really, like, screaming and, like, doing it with all my might and all this kind of stuff. It's not hurting him at all. We're not hitting him at all. But I remember hearing people just, like, wince, and just, like, you could hear people in the congregation that were watching going, ah. There was something that was visceral about the reaction, because as we were sitting there, we were entering into the story. The interesting thing is, okay, so over the course of Lent, we've been doing this kind of, we've been walking through liturgy, and we've been walking through about participation at liturgy and the parts of the liturgy, whether it be penitential rite, liturgy of the word, offertory. Every time we come into Mass, we enter into the story. The same story we just heard. The same gospel that we just heard. The same story that this entire week is about, that we're entering into. We do this every time we come to Mass. There's a principle of liturgical celebration that we borrow and build upon from our Jewish brothers and sisters. And you may have heard me talk about this before, but it's this theme of a memorial. For a Jewish person, like today, whenever Jesus comes into, when he's coming into Jerusalem and they take the branches, that's why we have branches, and they put them out on the road as like this sign of like reverence to the king coming home or whatever. Like when they do this kind of move, Jesus is going to Jerusalem because he's going to celebrate the Passover. He's a faithful Jew. He's going to do everything that the Jewish law requires. And the Jewish people, when they would celebrate the Passover, their celebration of the Passover was not just like an anniversary thing. It wasn't just a, hey, remember what happened way back when? We're going to just have like a celebration that kind of like remembers it. And that's good and beautiful and wonderful, woo-hoo. When they celebrate a memorial feast, there was a particular theology that was behind that. That they made present in the present moment that which happened in the past. I'll say it again. They make present in the present moment what happened in the past. The first Passover was celebrated in Egypt, in slavery. The first Passover was whenever Moses, they had the 10 plagues that were going on in Egypt while they were under the boot of Pharaoh, and they were being held in slavery, and they were being brutalized, and they were being abused, and they were like, all of these things were happening to the Israelite people, God's chosen people. They were not able to go and offer sacrifice and celebrate their liturgy and offer their prayers to God the way He prescribed. And what happened is that God said, okay, I'm going to declare war on all of these false gods of the Egyptian people. And the 10th of those plagues that he put out there was the death of the firstborn of everything and everyone in the country of Egypt. And what happens is that the Jewish people, the Israelite people, were told that if you would offer the sacrifice of a lamb, that you would use the blood, put it on the doorpost of your home, that you would be passed over, the Passover. But part of this promise was not that you do this one time and you're good, but that this sacrifice would be offered forever. That this would be an annual sacrifice forever, that would be a memorial sacrifice forever. So in a year, what you're going to do is those same Israelite people are in the Exodus. They're walking around in the desert. What did they do? They celebrate the same Passover. And it's not just, hey, remember what happened a year ago. It's, we're making present in the present moment what happened in the past. And again, 5 years later, 10 years later, 500 years later, 1,500 years later, they're still offering the Passover. When Jesus goes into Jerusalem today, when he enters into the city and they put the palms and leafy branches out for him, what they are doing is he is showing up to do what? To offer the Passover. It's a memorial. They make present in the present moment that which happened in the past. Well, when we celebrate Mass, we are celebrating a memorial feast. We are celebrating a memorial where we make present in the present moment what happened in the past. But it has nothing to do with Egypt, and it has everything to do with what we just heard. In a few minutes, after I say the words of institution, after I say, take this, all of you, in need of it, for this is my body, which will be given up for you. Take this, all of you, and drink from it, for this is the chalice of my blood, the blood of the new and everlasting covenant, which will be poured out for you and for many for the forgiveness of sins. Do this in memory of me. Ring, 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 ring. After I say this, what do we say? Therefore, as we celebrate the memorial, keyword, the memorial of his death and resurrection, we offer you, O Lord, the bread of life and the chalice of salvation. It's not an accident that we say these words, because every Mass we come to, We make present in the present moment that which happened in the past. We make present in the present moment the sacrifice we heard about on Calvary. We make present in the present moment the Last Supper. We make present in the present moment the passion, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. This is why we come to Mass. Because it's the most effective prayer. It's the most powerful prayer. It's the best prayer that we have on this side of the grave. That Jesus Christ, passion, death, and resurrection is going to be made present here. There's no more suitable way for us to enter into this week. The challenge for us, I think, especially as we go into the next week, counting down to Easter in a week's time, is how can we continue to make present in the present moment what happened in the past? How can we continue to reflect? How can we continue to live in the graces and the moments of Christ's last week alive? How is it that we memorialize the passion, death, and resurrection of Jesus? We can reflect on the scriptures. We can reflect on all the different people that we come across in the gospel today. I mean, we can listen to the gospel, and we have with Peter, talks the big game, is very, very excited, full of zeal, full of passion. Makes all these promises that he knows he's going to keep. And Jesus looks at him and says, you're going to fail. And you're not just going to fail once, you're going to fail 3 times. And then you're going to hear a rooster crow. When you hear the rooster crow, it's just going to be a reminder that, guess what? You failed. We have Barabbas, this notorious criminal that's in prison, and that as Pilate, you can tell he's reluctant. He doesn't want to crucify Jesus. He doesn't want to put him to death. He's asking the questions, what has he done? All these kind of things. He's investigating him. He's interviewing him. What does he do? He takes the worst of the criminals and puts him up next to Jesus, maybe questioning that the people are going to say, Jesus, spare his life, over this horrible, notorious criminal known as Barabbas, who deserves what he gets. But maybe there's been rough stuff in your life. And you look over and you see that Jesus is going to take your place. I might deserve it. He doesn't. Maybe you associate with somebody like Mary Magdalene, who Jesus showed compassion to, who Jesus showed love to. The rest of the world wrote off. And she was a friend of Jesus, a follower of Jesus, and she follows him all the way. She's the only one outside of Mary herself, that Mary, his mother, that makes her way all the way to Calvary. All the other guys walked away. One of them screwed up and betrayed him. The other 11 fled. But Mary stayed present. Mary was the one that stayed faithful. And she went all the way to Calvary itself, watched it happen, watched him die. And when everything's over, we hear that she finds herself at the grave after it's sealed, staring at it in disbelief. Maybe it's a soldier that you just feel in connection to. My sin puts him there. There's a story that when Mel Gibson was producing the movie The Passion, there was an interview that somebody asked him, said, you're a professional actor, you've won like awards and stuff, like why didn't you put yourself in the movie? And he said, actually I am in the movie. And they were like, where? Like, are you like in makeup, or like you in a background, or like an extra? He said, no. He said, you only see my hands. And he said, well, what part? And they said, the crucifixion. Because Mel Gibson said it was his hands that was holding the nails and the hammer when they were doing the scenes of the crucifixion. And when asked why, he said, because that's all I contributed to the story. There are plenty of people in today's gospel. There are plenty of people that we hear about in the passion narratives, in the way of the cross, Who is it and where is it that the Lord is inviting you to enter into the story? How is it as we go through this week, can you keep at the forefront of your mind why this week is different than the rest of the year? We don't call it Holy Week to be sweet. We call Holy Week because this is the holiest time of the year for us as Christians. As we come through this week, as we enter into the rest of these last few days of Lent, maybe the last 6 weeks of Lent have sucked and been terrible for you. So what? God wants to meet you. God wants to work in you. God wants to invite you into the story this week so you could walk with him, be with him, and that he can reveal himself to you by making present in the present moment the worst and greatest thing that has ever happened in human history. May we enter into this week, enter into the rest of this Mass, memorializing the Lord, making present in the present moment his passion, death,